You're listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we're tuning into a session from the ABA archive with the closing keynote from Children's Institute 2021, Music and the Stories That Make Movement.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CI9 closing keynote, Music and the Stories That Make Movement. Excuse me. My name is Cliff. I am the sole children's bookseller at Left Bank Books in St. Louis, Missouri. It is my job to introduce the wonderful, amazing authors for this panel. Hanif Abdurraqib is a New York Times bestselling poet, essayist, and cultural critic whose poetry has been published in PEN America, Muzzle, Vinyl, and other journals. He is the host of the new Sonos podcast, Object of Sound. Jason Reynolds is a #1 New York Times bestselling author of 14 books and the current national ambassador for young people's literature. His upcoming new book, Stunt Boy in the Meantime, goes on sale November 9th. And it's his first illustrated middle grade novel, illustrated by the award-winning author, illustrator, and artist Raoul III. Tiffany Jackson is the New York Times bestselling author of Grown, Allegedly, Monday's Not Coming, and Let Me Hear a Rhyme, a Walter D. Myers honor book, and Coretta Scott King John Steptoe New Talent Award winner. She received her Bachelor of Arts in Film from Howard University, her Master of Arts in Media Studies from the New School, and has over a decade in TV and film experience. The Brooklyn native still resides in the borough she loves. Her forthcoming book, White Smoke, is on sale September 14th. Tami Charles is the critically acclaimed author of numerous books for young readers, including instant New York Times bestselling All Because You Matter. In her teens and early 20s, Tami enjoyed a taste of fame as a member of an all-girl R&B trio. They performed for Boyz II Men, BET, Showtime at the Apollo, and had countless hours of radio play. It is now my joy to turn over to the panelists, and excellence. Thank you all for doing this.
Hey. Where are my people? There's one. Oh, there's two. There's three. All right.
Hi.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Okay,
hey.
So I'm really excited to be here with you. I think that if this was in person, oh man,
fire.
Oh my gosh, there would be music for sure. There would be music to kick off the intro, but you know, daggone COVID. But we're here. We're here. We're happy and healthy. So let's get into it. We're gonna talk about books and music and activism and how it's all interconnected. And let me just highlight what I got here. How's my shelf?
Oh, wow.
Looking?
Ah, nice. Looking nice.
How's the shelf looking? Is looking good?
Yes.
Looks great.
And I got some more stuff here. I got little notes and stuff. I can't wait to talk to you guys. All right. So first question. Let's kick this off with a memory. I want you to think back. We know that classic movie line, like, when did you first fall in love with hip hop? So I'm gonna spin off of that and ask for you to describe, your earliest memory. Like, when did you fall in love with music? Any type of music, whatever genre you like. But I want to hear, like, where were you? Who were you with? And what song was playing? Like, give me all the feels and, like, take us there.
I'm gonna go first because I always know this one. Whitney Houston was my first.
Okay.
I remember specifically, like, being like a really, like, like maybe 3 or 4, probably more like 4, and like playing in the living room. My mother had a record on, and I remember like stopping whatever I was doing to listen to The Greatest Love of All. And I don't know why that song just blew me away, where I like kind of like was like pointing, like telling my mom to like play it again, because I, of course I wasn't allowed to touch anything on the little record stand. So that was probably my first one. And ever since then, I've been in love with Whitney Houston.
Okay.
Man, I'm trying to think. I mean, there's so many, like, what's the first one? I think It would probably be a tie between listening to Papa Was a Rolling Stone with my mother and seeing if I could like catch it, right? Because, you know, there's a good 2.5 minutes of just intro, and you kind of got to catch it when the Temptations come in. And I was always just trying to make sure, and I was always a little late or a little early, and you're always just trying to make sure you know when to time it, you know? And then I would probably couple with my father listening to Bruce Hornsby. Listening to Bruce Hornsby, That's Just the Way It Is, because it was a single, and he played it over and over again. And for some reason, as like a 6-year-old, all of the emotion in my body was like giving it up to this song. I think, at that age, I'm full of emotion, right?
Yeah,
I'm on fire with emotion. You know what I mean? And I think those would be. And I think those would be my two.
Okay.
On Nina Simone's live 1964 record, she has a version of Pirate Jenny from the Threepenny Opera, and much like Nina's greatest skill, I think, was transforming songs that were maybe not written with our people in mind and making them distinctly ours, right? Like, Black is the Color of My True Love's Hair was like an Irish, like an Irish traditional folk song. And her version of Pirate Jenny's like really, I was maybe 5 or 6 and someone in my house was playing the record. And her version of Pirate Jenny, I mean, the original Pirate Jenny is a little bit haunting, but it's supposed to be triumphant, right? It's supposed to be like a woman comes back and seeks revenge on a town and levels the town and rides off on a pirate ship. Nina's version, that live version specifically, is really ominous because there's a siren. Even with limited knowledge and understanding of the transatlantic slave trade, because my parents were like, very smart and all, they kind of like educated me on that when I was very young. I think I maybe just learned about it when I was 5 or 4 or something. And all I knew was this woman who I knew was a Black woman, because I saw that the album cover, was singing about ships and towns being burned to the ground. And it's interesting that I consider that my first moment where I fell in love with music, because I had nightmares about it. I still remember the first nightmare I had about that song. I had nightmares about her rendition of that song for weeks. And for me, that's an example of the impact music can have. It's supposed to, in some ways, linger, whether it's haunting or pleasureful. And so I always count that as an introduction to my love for music.
That's dope. Hanif, can y'all see Hanif?
Yeah, I can
see him.
Oh, okay, because I can't see him, but it's fine. It's okay.
Okay. All right, so next question. Fill in the blank. Music is what for you?
Required. Required. Are we to expound?
Yeah, I'll elaborate on that. Yeah.
I think for me, just my household growing up and just the way that I was sort of reared, it was always a thing. Like, it's like you have to, like it provides a soundtrack to your life. But even more so than that, I think it attaches itself to you. Well, we know scientifically it attaches itself to you differently. It attaches itself to your brain. And to your psyche in a different way. I'll tell you guys a really very, very, very quick anecdote. Recently, I lost my father in December, and as he was transitioning, it's all good. Thank you. As he was transitioning, my father was a blues man, right? Hardcore. Like, that's blues, rock and roll music. That's it. It's all and reggae music. But that was it, right? And as he was transitioning, there was this sort of moment 2 days before his death that he was unconscious, that he was slipping in and out of company. He couldn't speak anymore. He was already pretty much gone. And my stepmother's playing like orchestral Christmas music. And my brothers and I are in the room with my father. And we're like, yo, what is this music? Like, this dude don't want to die like this. Like, this can't be the soundtrack to his demise, right? Like, this can't be the end, right? And so we turn the station to the blues, and he wakes up. And he has 2 lucid hours laughing and joking with us, singing these songs, telling us the first time he heard Lucille, telling us the first time he heard B.B. King, telling us the first time that he heard the Allman Brothers, right? Wide awake. And we had one more moment with this man. simply because music woke something up in him and sort of brought him back to a place. And so I think that like for the human experience, to me, or at least from my experience, it's just a required part of my development, but even more so just like my wholeness, you know?
I'm tearing up.
Dang it, Jason.
That was beautiful. Damn it.
True story.
So to piggyback off of Jason, I guess then, yeah, I would say that music is sort of, you know, your love letter, your love language in a lot of ways, because it's the way that people, you know, I used to love when people used to leave, you know, or like boys would leave like song lyrics on like my voicemail and stuff like that. Like that used to be just like my favorite thing. But then also just thinking about what Jason was saying, how, you know, in the last couple of days, in the last moments of my grandmother's life, I was playing reggae. I was playing, you know, songs like, and specifically like gospel reggae music that I didn't even know had American versions too until I was much older. So yeah, I think that was something that if you lost words, you can always play a song and the song will say exactly what you were meant to say, like that feeling, that emotion that you just can't find the words for. So I definitely feel like it is somewhat of a love language.
These are great answers that I've been thinking about a couple things, and one of them is, since Jason brought up the blues, the Delta blues, and I guess I'll give the short answer, and I think music is an act of both lineage building and one of the many things that reminds me that there are people who were doing things before I thought to do them. I'm not, you know, there are many ways that I'm not the first of anything, but I think because I'm so obsessed with music history and the nuances of music history, it's easy to find those reminders there. When I think about the Delta blues, you know, I just did a thing where I wrote about Mississippi and about the Delta, and I was thinking about Junior Kimbrough and R.L. Burnside and mixed through Fred McDowell, all these folks who American music history will say were not quote unquote legitimate because they were not recorded until later in their lives, right? But what does that mean for the undoubtedly hundreds, if not more, Black people who saw these folks play in juke joints for years and years and years? That's a type of recording, right? It's not served the American obsession with proof that I think we are constantly embroiled in, but that's the type of record making. And it's the most unique form of record making because Junior Kimbrough wasn't playing songs the same way every night. R.L. Burnside was playing songs the same way every night.
Yeah.
Another thing, you know, we just lost Lee Scratch Perry this weekend. Right. And Lee Perry was interesting to me because, you know, of all the great stories about him, he is perceived largely as a like oddity, this quote unquote madman, you know, like burning down a studio and all these things. But actually, Lee Perry is someone who saw a future where there was no future and just continually stepped out into the beyond, waiting for a thing to be built. And that's another way that music is an act of lineage making, because I'm not saying that like, you know, a genre or a sound wouldn't exist without Lee Scratch Perry. I believe that someone maybe would have, but no one would have done it as generously and as thoughtfully, I think, and for so long as he did, and so fearlessly uncommitted to himself. He was so committed to the best producers work largely in service of others and not themselves. And anyway, I think what I'm saying is that music for me is something I understand as a tool of lineage building and lineage making.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So,
Hanif's smart, right? Hanif is a smart guy, ain't he?
Right. I am not worthy.
I'm like, all right.
Hanif, you take over and I'll answer.
The smart dude. We like feel good. We like, oh, music make you feel good. Hanif is like, listen. What it actually does.
Yeah. Here's the philosophical definition.
Man.
All right, so let's get into like song lyrics. before I logged in, I actually spent like a good hour just like jamming out, listening to music, trying to think through like how would I even answer some of these questions. But this one's my favorite. I want to know which song lyrics embody who you are as a human and an artist. So I want to hear the lyrics. I mean, you know, Jason, if you want to sing them, that works too. But I want to know what's the lyric and like what song, who sang it. Go.
I'm gonna have to think about this for just 2 seconds.
I just feel like I don't know.
I'll tell you.
I got an answer for this one, even though.
Okay, like, give us your answer.
Yeah.
Nah, you should answer. You should answer.
So
yeah,
one of my favorite singers, like she is just genius to me, is India Ari.
Mm-hmm.
Like her acoustic soul album and the Voyage to India, best. But it's Voyage to India 2006. It's the little things.
Yeah.
Been around the whole world, still ain't seen nothing like my neighborhood. And she talks about like all of these things, like in the quest for fortune and fame, don't forget about the little things. I just like the message. First of all, the song makes me feel good, but I like the message that's there is like to just stop, take a moment and really appreciate like the tiniest things that make you feel rich.
Yeah.
It may not be anything to anyone else, but when you're doing that thing or you have that thing, you are on top of the world. So like that song reminds me of who I want to be as a human.
Voyage to India also is the album that has like doesn't that have that Don Henley cover, that Heart of the Matter cover on it? Because I know for a long time I just thought that was an India Ari song, you know, and I heard the original and I was like, what is this? This ain't the thing.
This ain't the thing. What's your lyrics, Hanif?
Tiny backstory. I think this is my answer, at least now. This summer, I'm not supposed to have this, so I don't know why, but I'll publicly say it to how many people are watching. This summer, I got really obsessed with Stevie Wonder's isolated drum tracks because Stevie Wonder would sometimes, there are a lot of differences between Stevie Wonder and Prince, but the big difference is if Prince played every instrument on something, he would you would know about it. Stevie Wonder would do this thing where he'd like make up other names and credit other fake musicians, you know. There's a level of humility there, but I got obsessed with trying to figure out where he was playing drums on his tracks and where he wasn't. So I got these isolated drum tracks, and you can tell you can tell when Stevie Wonder is like drumming on his songs because you can hear him humming along, like in the headphones. And so it's like this thing where he was like, there's ways to write songs as a songwriter and ways to write songs as like an architect who's seeing something through, you know. But I say that to say that what I love a song that fades out and knocks me off my feet has this thing at the end where like it moves to the chorus, just the repetition of the chorus, right, moves to this like ecstasy that I think Black singers like know well, like Little Richard originated and like helped originate it. But that like repetition of the chorus that I don't want to bore you with, but I love you, I love you, I think that perhaps defines my writing more than anything, because it's like a push towards the ecstatic and a shamefulness about repetition and like understanding repetition / obsession as something that can appear differently if we tend to it well enough and thoughtfully enough. And so that's it.
Okay, wait, Hanif, I have a question. So was he the drummer on Another Star? You know, when he isolated he was?
No, he wasn't. I know that song, but he was not the drummer. No.
Okay. All right.
I know.
I just want to know how one acquires the drum track.
Right? Yeah, I think you have to be Hanif.
Only Hanif. You got to be Hanif, right? Hanif got him. Rick Rubin got him. Hanif got him. There's only a few people who got them.
There's like 2 people in the world.
Yeah. That's the illest NFT of all time. You know what I mean? I think for me, my lyrics, I got a few just like, because I was trying to figure out like what I'm thinking to myself just now, like what lyrics do I think connect to my life and to my work, right? And I think Can't Knock the Hustle. On Can't Knock the Hustle, and Jay-Z says, "You ain't having it? Good, me either. Let's get together and make the whole world believe us." Right? Like this to me, I think that when I think about my partners in this industry, when I think about the people who are just the writers that I know, I think there's so many of us are kind of like, man, I just ain't. I'm over it, and I feel like it's a lot of us are sort of like, well, look, let's get together. And I think every generation has that, every generation has the writers of that time, whatever era that is, right? Spanning all genres. And fortunately, if you Black, a lot of times you happen to know each other, right? For better or for worse, right? But oftentimes you know each other. And it's kind of like, and every time for us, I think there's a lot of sort of like arm linking where it's like, look, we're going to push the line, right? We're going to try to figure out how to do what we can for this generation, in all categories and all genres, like so that they could be a Hanif, and they could be a Kiese, they could be a Tiff Jackson, they could be a Disha Filia, they could be, the scholars and the nonfiction and the horror writers and the kids writers, and right. And I think there's something about that. Like, you ain't having it? Good, me either. Let's get together and make the whole world. And I think the other thing is Tracy Chapman's from 1988 Tracy Chapman album, which is probably my favorite album of all time. Just a simple refrain, talking about a revolution that sounds like a whisper. And I think about my work and the work that at least what I'm attempting to do in this work, because there's not a lot going on in my books, right? There's not a lot of stuff happening in my books. There's not a lot of plot, like, you know what I mean? It's just about, like, for me, the revolution is sort of the portrayal of these people, and it sounds like a whisper when really it's actually, hopefully, changing the way that we exist in the world, or at least that some kid might exist in the world, for that matter.
That's perfect.
So I think those two things.
I love Tracy Chapman.
Right. Shout out Tracy Chapman.
Yeah.
Can I say a quick? Never mind. I'm not going to say.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Put it on.
Really,
ready.
I can't let the name of Tracy Chapman slide without saying she's an Ohioan, and also like for me, the second greatest writer to come out of Ohio, and not like songwriter. I mean, like Tracy Chapman is like a fiction writer, I
agree.
And if not for Miss Toni Morrison, like Tracy Chapman would be the greatest writer to ever come out of the state.
Thank you very much. So look, I'm so glad you said this, because I've been trying to tell people that people should just read the lyrics, right? Like Tracy Chapman said, my old man got a problem. He lives in a bottle. That's the way it is. Yep. He says his body's too old for working, but his body's too young to look like his. Tracy Chapman got like bars on bars on bars on bars. And she builds the scene, right? Like, yeah, we can do this forever. But Tracy Chapman, I agree. It's the second greatest writer to ever come out of Ohio. I'm not an Ohioan, but Hanif said it, so I
yeah, agree, we're bigging him up. I really don't know. Like, that seems like such an impossible question. Like, at first I was going to quote Lauryn Hill.
I love Lauryn.
In her song "Tell Him," says, "I have faith to make mountains fall, but if I lack love, then I am nothing at all." Mm-hmm. So I feel that that's something. And for a long time, of course, when that album came out, I had no clue that was actually talking about God, and until like I was maybe like way deep in my 20s. So I felt like that was also like one that really like talks about like just my love of love and my love of my people and wanting to still continue that work. But then I also think of like SZA of Solid as a Rock, like that first like, crescendo that comes out, like where they can't keep a good man down, always keep a smile when you want me to frown, keep the vibes and I stood my ground, they'll never take my crown. Mm-hmm. Like if you've ever been in a reggae club, when that comes on, it's like literally holy. Like the whole place goes crazy. Yes. And so I feel like that's always the song that comes on when I'm about to like get mad about something. Like where it literally like starts playing in my head and I'm like, okay, calm down. Like that's probably, so yeah, I guess that works.
I like that.
That's a good one. That's a great one.
Really good one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Man. All right. So 3 topics: music, reading, activism. How do these 3 things intersect, in your opinion?
Wait, say that one more time.
Music, books, and activism. Like, how do these things intersect for you?
Oof.
They kind of feel one and the same. Is that a cheat answer? That's it.
Whatever answer you want to give is good with me. Maybe I should piggyback off of that. So I will, because technically, yeah, you know, music and books, they do spark activism, right? So with that in mind, tell me like an iconic song, it can be past or present, that has sparked activism here or beyond. Like, and maybe this song or this artist or this like activism type song, maybe it influenced your work. But what do you think? And if you need an idea, I'll start. So when Aretha Franklin passed away a couple of years ago, I found out that she passed away like as soon as I landed at the airport. And I remember being so sad because when I was a little girl on Saturdays, I mean, we're cleaning the house and we're playing Aretha. Like, that's what I remember. And I remember being a little girl and singing R-E-S-P-E-C-T. I didn't know what I was singing about when I was a little kid. So when she passed, and then I was looking through her songs and seeing all these news reports. As a child, I did not know that she was singing about rights, like civil rights. Like I was just, you know, being a precocious little child with the broom, pretending I'm singing. But that song, Respect, has really endured. It's outlived her. And if you think about different movements, I mean, even elections, they're playing Respect. Right? So like, to me, that's like a classic song that kind of sparks activism. Now, as far as books, I mean, what kind of books? So you got music and then you got books. Like, tell me what you think about, you know, what's your answer for that?
I mean, I guess in that same sort of vein, I think like I didn't realize right away that Aretha was talking about rights in terms of respect because, you know, we're singing, you know, we're just kind of, I can't sing, but like I'm happy singing that song versus when I first heard Public Enemy's Fight the Power. That was a huge song in New York when it first came out because it literally was the entire beginning of the movie Do the Right Thing. And there was so much anger and rage in that song. And that was the first song I feel like actually spoke to validated our righteous anger. I feel like we were always like singing like, you know, kind of like We Shall Overcome and Sing, Celebrate. And there was nothing like that really sort of like keyed into like how angry we should have been. And I was pretty young when that song came out, but I remember it being everywhere. And I remember it being all over Brooklyn out of everyone's speakers. And it felt like it was such a hum in the city. And I mean, maybe that was also, I don't know if that really speaks to exactly what I mean by like, you know, how it influences my own work, if it does at all, or if it influences how I feel about music, reading, and activism, but it definitely shows how you can be angry and you're allowed to be angry. And I felt like as a young child, I wasn't allowed to be angry.
Yeah. One, since we've introduced the good ancestor Aretha into the space, you know, this maybe flows into my answer a bit. One thing I love about music and Black musicians is how, and I suppose this is in some ways a type of activation, if not activism, how we have found folks and responded to them. So like the difference sonically, the difference between Otis's Respect, which I heard first, I didn't, you know, I heard that before I heard Aretha's, and Aretha's Respect is like maybe like 4 notches on a bridge. But like thematically, it's like an entire universe, right? Otis's Respect is saying, give me what I want. And Aretha's Respect is saying, pay me what you owe me, you know? Yeah. And that's an entirely different world we're operating in. And so I think about that when, you know, Joe Tex and James Brown respond to music. But what I was going to say initially is in 1971, Marvin Gaye came out with What's Going On. And that's seen as like one of the great protest albums of all time, which sure, I won't fight that too hard. But 6 months later, Sly and the Family Stone came out with There's a Riot Going On. Which is like a great response album that I think maybe fits my Marvin was resigned but hopeful, and There's a Riot Going On is disillusioned and shrugging in a way. Where it's like, yeah, man, stuff's a mess. What do you want us to do? What are you gonna do about it? We can't do anything about it. So here's some songs. And I think against my better impulses, There's a Riot Going On is an album that probably outlines my cynical nature more than I wanted to, more than I'd like it to. But
that's real.
I do love that album a great deal, and I to it often.
I think I agree. By the way, right? Yeah, There's a Riot Going On. Man, oh man, what an album! I think for me, it's a tricky question a little bit. I think because like there's like, you know, Criminal Minded. You know what I mean? The whole Criminal Minded album is like, there's so much on that record that I think could fit into this question, but by KRS. But I also think, like, I don't know if any song has made me feel like I could go and do something, right? I'm thinking about the songs that make me feel like I can go and do something, right? And I don't think there's any song, besides Fight the Power, maybe, I don't think there's any song that has ever made me feel like I could go and do something like Young, Gifted, and Black. That song, it makes me feel like a giant. Right. And it's not telling me to go do anything, but it makes me feel like I can go and do whatever I want to do. And I listen to it all the time, all the versions, right? Whether it be Nina's version or Donnie's version or like whoever's version, right? Because they're all great, by the way, which is also a rarity that everybody's version is fire. And they all make me, it's like medicine. You know what I mean? And it's like when I was a kid, you had your power pellet, right? It's like that's like my power pellet. It makes me become like, you know, a superhero. It makes me feel like a superhero. The other song, though, as I try to sort of subvert the way that we think of activism, the other song would probably be Dock of the Bay. And the reason why is because even though it could be seen as a depressive song, a song of a listless man or a man who can't quite find his footing. To me, it often feels like a song of rest. When have we ever heard a song where a Black person just says, "I'm wasting time"? Like I'm just sitting here. I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away, wasting time, right? And then he whistles, which makes the song feel a little less depressing, right? Yeah. Because he's whistling, which makes it seem like perhaps he really is just wasting time. And that, my friends, to me, is something that we don't do enough, which is to just rest. As someone who has a hard time with resting, and perhaps there is so much to say about what activism looks like when Black people take a breather. If we ever had the luxury of just taking a breath and having a seat for a second and whistling in the wind.
Nice. You know what I thought, Hanif? You know what I thought you were going to say? I thought you might have said Strange Fruit.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I don't know. That was my assumption. Forgive me. So I don't know.
Wait, why did you think that? I
don't know, because, like, first of all, your book, A Little Devil in America, I'm like, oh man, this guy's a scholar. I gotta pull out my highlighter and take notes here.
I barely finished high school, so that's very nice.
Now, you know, like Strange Fruit is such a beautiful song, but again, and this song is before all of our time. However, it didn't dawn on me the reality of those lyrics until I became an adult. Did you guys see the movie? On Hulu?
Which movie?
The Billie movie? The Billie Holiday movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Lee Daniels. That's Lee Daniels. That's Lee Daniels' joint, right? He did that joint.
Maybe.
I think Lee Daniels did that joint, and I be trying not to watch Lee Daniels, but that's a whole other conversation.
That we'll do that on another panel. But anyway, but like, you know, the meaning behind that song really did spark activism. It sparked, you know, discussions about lynching in our country, like awful history of that. But yeah, again, that's probably another panel for another day.
I mean, all right,
Sorry, go ahead. Let's have a little fun. So I want to know, I would like some book recs if you can. I want you to pair a book with a song or artist. Like if you could recommend both to young readers, your audience, drop a song and book like pair. And if you need an idea, I got one. I got two actually. I'll start. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I love this book, The Bells by Danielle Clayton. This is a good book. When I see this cover, when I read the book, I thought of two songs: The Glamorous Life by Sheila E. and Fight the Power, Public Enemy. What you got? You got anything?
Oof.
You know, see, it's hard, right? Because I did 3 musical books back to back. So like Monday's Not Coming was rooted in go-go. Let Me Hear Rhyme was rooted in 90s hip hop. Grown was rooted in R&B or like 90s R&B. So like, I feel like I have soundtracks to each one of my books. I had to, in order to kind of like give those descriptions. But this last book that I did, White Smoke, because one of my favorite things to do is put lyrics in books, if I can get away with it. And one of the books, the songs I put into my most recent novel is Hey by Crucial Chronic.
Crucial Conflict, yeah.
Conflict.
Yeah.
And because it's talking about the idea of smoking weed. And I talk a lot about, you know, the weed industry and the prison complex. And so I feel like that's kind of, I mean, I love pairing music with books because then the kids can go back and listen to whatever, like, you know, Spotify playlist I put together, and it actually really like makes the book resonate even more. Because I think we kind of have to meet, particularly with kids, we kind of have to meet them where they're at, right? And a lot of kids are listening to music, and that's how we absorb a lot. So I feel like, you know, I prefer to engage and go where they lead me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. It's tough. You know, I read this book recently, Me Moth by Amber McBride.
I've been seeing that one.
Yo.
Mm.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's special. It's really something. But I can't really talk about the book because if I talk about the book, it's one of those books where you pull one brick and the whole house falls. So I can't really say much about the book, but I think about that book.
Is it scary though? Is it scary?
It's not.
Oh, okay.
Not at all. I think about that book and I think about the whole, do you guys know Laura Mvula?
Mm-hmm.
Laura Mvula, her first album. What's her first album, Hanif? What's it called, man? Sing to the Moon. Moon. That album, the whole album, I think is like a perfect album for Amber McBride's Me Moth. By the way, if you don't know who Laura Mvula is, you should just listen to all of her music. I think she's a Brit, Afro Brit, Caribbean Brit, and she's genius. I think she's just one of the best of our time that no one seems quite latched on yet over here. I think she's brilliant. So, and also I think what's the Paul Simon song, the lullaby joint, St. Judy's Comet, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I think about that song, and I think that it could go with, and I think that it would be great with like pretty much almost any children's book. Like it's just like it's one of those songs it's another one of those songs I go back to over and over again because I think it's perfectly written. You know what I mean? Like even the way that he's referencing what it means to be a father and how he knows that his child is manipulating him, that he can't win. He can't win because he loves. It's just too hard to like, you know, I want you to go to bed, but I also am kind of like, I don't know how to make this happen because I am a softie. And there's something about that song that is super special. And I think it can go with a lot of different, especially picture books, you know.
Gosh, Crucial Conflict. You know, there's no, not that evidence is needed, but for me, there's like no greater evidence of Black migration than like Chicago's rap, like the arc of Chicago rap. And how like, I remember first hearing Crucial Conflict and then finding out they're from the west side of Chicago. And when I was young, I was like, that doesn't make sense. And a couple years later, I was like, no, that actually makes perfect sense. You know what I mean? This is country, like really country, right? Yeah, it's just wild. I mean, another thing that music does is you can really trace the evolution of Black folks through what music comes out of where. Like, you know, the black folks who kept moving ended up in Dayton, where there were houses that had basements, and therefore there's funk. You know, that's just. But to answer the question, I think I'll bring another Ohioan into the room. Virginia Hamilton's "The People Could Fly" was one of the first books that I got my hands on, that was handed to me, and I think that the kind of expansive nature of Miriam Makeba's voice and just her ability as a narrator. So like a song like Into Yam or like any Miriam Makeba, I think would work pairing with that book. You know, a series of books that meant the world to me that I actually just bought. I've been looking at it on like some rare book site, and I finally bought it. That I got like a first edition of this series. Anyone remember Lloyd Alexander?
Yeah.
Gosh, I loved Lloyd Alexander and the Prydain Chronicles. It just meant so much to me.
The what Chronicles?
Prydain, Pyrdain.
Okay.
And like looking back, those books like taught me a lot about, it was interesting that there was like a male figure at the center of it who was striving to be a hero and failed a lot. And so it was different than a lot of books I was reading where it's like the boy gets the girl and is a hero. You know what I mean? It was like this dude is like really struggling to understand himself and all that. And so I really think about that. And for some reason, I want to pair those books with Band on the Run by Wings, which is just like like mini epic. You know, I mean, that song has like four different parts to it. It's like a mini suite. And each suite of that song feels like it's failing to achieve. It's failing forward to achieve what the song eventually achieves.
Yeah.
Which is funny because whenever you mention these songs, I'm like, I know the tone of these books without ever having to read them.
Yeah. I keep telling myself that one day I'm going to write a book that just uses Marvin Gaye's "I Want You," just uses the album and just sort of like builds the art, like just builds the scaffolding of a book using song after song after song on that record. Especially since he goes back, he does the instrumentals, he does the extended, he does all this interesting stuff to sort of build a narrative arc in a really fascinating way. That I don't know if Hanif probably is thinking about, but like most of us probably aren't thinking about it in that way. And I feel like I'm gonna write something about it. And then I want them to put it on a TV like the Small Axe joint. Like the what's the second episode of Small Axe?
Lovers Rock.
Lovers Rock. Do like a Lovers Rock joint, but with like black folks in the 70s or black folks in today's time. Black
was
Americans.
So beautiful.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I want it. Okay, guys, this went way faster than I thought. And I think we only have like 3 minutes left, which means we can probably only answer like half a question. Okay. But let's do it. Okay. Someone wants to know, this is from Jin. What do you listen to while you write?
Nothing.
Yeah, I can't listen to music while I write. I edit while listening to music, but I can't write listening to music.
No.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Fair enough. I usually like kick it off with some music, but the deep thought, I think I need silence.
Like the way my brain works, like a lyric will easily just fall into like my prose, and I'll be like, oh, this ratchet lyric that I just put in isn't exactly working for this book. So, but yeah.
Hands on my knees. All of a sudden it's like, and then Tasha put her hand
and dropped it like it was hot.
It's like, yo.
Oh. Okay, wait. I think we can do one more question then. Michelle would like to. No, I'm sorry. Emily would like to know, what is a recent album that inspired you?
Ooh. Oh. Let me look at hold on a second. I got to answer.
I don't really like today's music like that.
Oh, there's so much good music. There's so much good music. There's so much good music. Don't buy into this, Tami. Don't do this.
I'm a little old school when it comes to my choices.
All right. So I have been listening to, I'll tell you what song I can't stop listening to. The first song on Billie Eilish's new joint. Hey, yo, let me tell you the name of the song.
Yeah, sing it. Hey, sing it for us. Take us
I can't sing it for you. But the first song on the bill, it's called Getting Older. And that song, just listen to that. It's a slow song. It is the word. I mean, she even says the things I once enjoyed now keep. I mean, like she's talking about like the struggles of being a professional artist. Genius. Listen to that song.
Okay.
Shout out to Billie Eilish. Stop sleeping on Billie Eilish. You know what I'm saying? White girl,
sleeping on her.
Little homie can sing. Little homie, all right. You know what I mean?
I'll check it out. I might check it out. I just can't get with the mumble rap.
Nah. Billie Eilish is a singer.
No, I know she's a singer. I'm just saying, like today,
like
the mumble rap.
Who you got, Tip?
What do you have?
So I don't have a recent one. I'm actually listening to recently. I've been doing mostly going back to Hector Lavoe. So so I've been listening to Mi Gente and Atheneum, and I'm trying to get into this mode to write this new book that I'm going to work on. And so I guess that's basically what I've been sort of getting back to some like old salsa, because that's what I used to listen to a lot when I was in high school. So yeah. So it's not really recent, but it's like what is on my like current playlist. I had to go back and look.
I'm looking at my thing. Turnstiles Glow On, which came out last week, is one of my favorite albums of the year so far. Cleo Soul's Mother.
Oh, so good. It's so
incredible.
Good.
I don't know if anyone watching it or not is into heavier stuff, but the new Wolves in the Throne Room album is like
so
really good.
It's great.
I got really hype on Brandy Younger. I don't know if anyone knows Brandy Younger. She's like a harpist. And her new album, which came out a few weeks ago, is called Somewhere Different, and I really, really love it.
Fire.
Well, guys, this was fun. I had a really good time. They're like yelling at me to wrap it up now.
All right. Nah, it was good, man. Thanks for having us, Tami. Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Tami.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody listening.
Everyone be good.
Holla.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA website at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!